Hello, hi, welcome to the Azure Data Factory video series, part one. So this is Vinod, and I'm really excited to share you the detailed information, the technical detailed information about each and everything within Azure Data Factory. And if you're new to the channel, I would highly recommend you if you're looking to clear Azure Data Engineering certification, which is DP203. We have created a very great high-level content and I can quickly show you that. Okay, so if you go to YouTube and within there you can search with data bag, and then you have a list of total 12 videos which is very specific to the point in terms of Azure Data Engineering certification. And there are also few scenarios in few videos. We've also discussed about how to address scenario based questions, how you need to think in terms of a person who has real-time experience. For example, you are completely new to data engineering field because it is very high in demand in the market right now, and you wanted to switch your career. And for that, you are preparing for the certification, okay? And you need a starting point, right? So maybe this could be your starting point. So you can start from these video series, and as far as I know, the syllabus is up to date, and there is a section as well. If I remember it correctly, maybe this is a section where we also discussed about few scenario based questions and how you need to handle those kind of questions. Because let's say you don't have real time experience, but you wanted to think in that direction. So we've also explained how you can manage in that case. And okay, let's say you have cleared your Azure Data Engineering certification. So now what next? Okay, so you apply for the job, but you also need to have some experience working with these services, right? Because to clear a certification, maybe you need to know very high level about each and every service. Okay, then you practice few bits, then okay, done. You have a certificate now. But to work in the real time, in real projects, you also need to have some deep dive experience or knowledge about each and every service. Based on my experience as a data engineer, 60 to 70% of work within Azure for data engineering related tasks are mainly on Azure Data Factory. And that is the main reason why we came up with this series where we are trying to, explain each and everything about Azure Data Factory. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into the concept. And yeah, let's see how it goes. Okay, then what is Azure Data Factory, right? Um, okay, we know what is Azure, of course, and now we are trying to understand about what is Azure Data Factory. In very simple terms, if I had to say, Azure Data Factory is one of the Azure service, right, which is mainly used to handle the ETL operations. Because for me, if I wanted to learn about any new service, for me the first thing I would focus is on the one liner, is on the definition. So if I had to see the definition of what is Azure Data Factory, in short form it's called as ADF. So if I say ADF, don't get confused, I'm talking about Azure Data Factory. Okay, so now let's get into the definition. Boy, I'm very speed, huh? I need to slow down. Slow, take it slow. Okay, so what is ADF? It is the cloud-based ETL, okay, and data integration service that allows you to create data-driven workflows for orchestrating data movement and transforming data at scale. I think if you had to break down this definition in in smaller terms just to understand it in detail. And one other thing which I wanted to highlight here is you might be very good at few things, and then you get into the complex part and try to understand everything, and then you forget about the base fundamental where you started with, right? For me for me remembering the fundamental, for me becoming a very strong for me becoming very very strong in the fundamental is very important. Because once you understand the fundamentals, you might deep dive into very complex part, but you should never forget about the fundamentals, because that really helps us to sometimes clear the interviews, and also sometimes try to understand and connect the dots. So here the fundamental part of ADF is it's a cloud based ETL. And there might be some folks out there in the market or out there who are looking at this video, they know what is ETL. It's extract, transform, and load, right? And I'll also show you a picture which gives more understanding about what is ETL. But here, to understand this definition, it is a cloud-based ETL. and it is also a data integration service. One important thing, if you're new to Azure, everything in Azure is a service. Everything in Azure is a service that allows you to create data-driven workflows. Okay, so it's allowing us to create data-driven workflows, and very important term, orchestrating data movement. Orchestrating data movement. Just remember that. I'll explain you what it is, and then transforming data at scale. So the abbreviation of ETL is extract, transform, and load. So it itself says a lot about the ADF, because ADF is ETL, but cloud-based ETL. And using Azure Data Factory, you can create and schedule data-driven workflows called pipelines. So don't get confused with the term pipelines, because there is a big concept within Azure called Azure DevOps, where you create CI/CD pipelines, and those pipelines are completely different than these pipelines. So that's the reason these are data-driven pipelines. Okay, so which mainly used to ingest data from different data sources or different data stores. Okay, and with this you can create complex ETL processes. Of course, you start simple and then you build complex parts, yeah, which really used to transform data and data flows. So there is another thing called data flows, but we will try to understand each and every component within Azure Data Factory. Don't get confused. Okay, so this is just the beginning. Just remember one thing: ADF is an cloud-based ETL tool. That's it. I don't expect anything than that at this moment of time if you're new to ADF, because slowly we will get there and we will try to explore each and everything. Okay, and okay, so let me finish this guy. So you can build complex ETL processes that transform data visually with data flows, okay, or by using compute services. So within Azure Data Factory, you also have a HD Insight. You can use Databricks, you can use Azure SQL databases, but we will see how we can use them. Moving to the next one. So like I mentioned, extract, transform, load. So what is ETL? So basically ETL is nothing but you are extracting the data from different sources, source 1, source 2, source 3, or combination of different sources, and then you are pulling that data into the ADF, into the tool itself, and then you are doing all kinds of transformations here. You do all kinds of transformations within this ADF, and then you load it into another target system or another storage. So basically you extract the data and then you transform it and then you load it. Okay, so once the data is, you know, transformed, and once the data is like, moved to the loading system or moved to the target system, then you visualize that using any of the BI tools. Power BI is like very widely used tool. This is because the data language, you can put it into a visual language so that you can explain it to your management, so which is very easy for them to understand the different trends within the data. And there is another thing within the cloud, Azure Data Factory, which is called extract, load, transform, ELT system. So this is more or less the same, but if you see the terms which are a little bit interchanged, especially between these two guys, load, transform, right? There it was transform, extract, transform, and load. Here you have to extract, load, and transform. So what is the difference between these two? This is mainly used in Azure Synapse and also within Azure Data Factory, but with the different activities. We will look into that. The only difference here is you extract the data from different sources. Okay, that's still the same. But here what you do is you load them, you ingest and you load them to the target systems, and after loading the data, then you start doing your transformations on top of that, right? And we will also need to understand the computing and the processing power you require to do all the transformations, but we will look into that in the coming sessions. But here you need to understand there are two things: ETL, ELT, and what is the difference between them. Okay, and then okay, so I think we got to know almost what we need to know, and then let's get into the Azure portal to see how you create the Azure Data Factory. Okay, so if you are really new to Azure systems, I would very much recommend you to go through the playlist which we've created before starting with this video. So for example, in the browser, you can just type portal.azure.com, which will redirect you to your Azure portal, and within that you can search Azure Data Factory. Okay, and if you've already done, then you can see that within the recent services, but you can also search them. So yeah, if you type data, then you should see a thing called Data Factories. Okay, you click on that. So I've already created one with the name of databag-data factory. Let's try to create one more. Okay, you click on create, right? And then you have a couple of options which you need to fill. It's like a form which you need to fill the details you need, and then you submit, and then it will generate a JSON code in the backend, which will be submitted to the Azure services, and then it will create you the Azure Data Factory. Okay, and so you have a hierarchy. So for example, you have a subscription. Within subscription you have resource group. So I'll not explain you about the basic Azure things, but here let's focus on Azure Data Factory. So let's say I already have Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. Okay, and within that, now I need to create a resource group. If I wanted to use a new resource group, I can create a new and I can already use them. Or if you wanted to create within the existing resource group, I can use that by clicking on the drop down. Let's say I've already have a resource group, and within that, here you need to fill few more information, especially this is specific to the instance. So with with on which location you wanted to launch the Azure Data Factory instance. Okay, let's keep West Europe as it is. Now you need to give the name of the Azure Data Factory instance. For example, here you see I've already given a name with data bag hyphen data factory. So now I need to use a new name here on this. So for example, here I give data bag hyphen data factory 2. Okay, and version you keep as it is 2, and then you go to next one. Okay, so I think there is some issue. It says no issue. Perfect. So after typing the name, just wait for like a second so that it tries to validate if there is already an existing name with that naming convention. Okay, then you click on next. Then you have an option here. This is really important, guys, because when you try to work on the real systems in the real projects, this is how you do. Either you have a configuration with Azure DevOps, or you have a configuration with the GitHub, right? But for this section, for this part, which is part one, we don't require this, because moving forward, we'll look into that, how to configure that part. Now I say configure it later, and then click on next, and yeah, you just leave them as it is by the default settings, and then click next. You don't have to put any tags, and then click on review and create. So here you can see all the information which you filled here, and then you could click on create. It tries to create the service. It tries to submit the JSON code, right? So you've filled the form here on the front end. Basically, it creates the JSON code in the back end, which submits to the Azure service, and then it tries to deploy that and creates you a new Azure Data Factory instance. So this might take a moment. Oh, this is quick. Okay, so now we have our Azure Data Factory instance created for us. So if you click on this go to resource, so it will redirect us to the Data Factory service. Yeah, so you have a couple of options here on the side. So don't worry about them. We'll look into them as well. But now I'm very much interested on this part. So here you have under getting started, you can click on this link, hyperlink, which says Open Azure Data Factory Studio. So once you click on that, it will launch the Data Factory user interface in your new tab. Yes. So we have successfully created our Azure Data Factory instance with the name databag-data factory 2. Okay, so here if you see, basically it says that you can also set up the repository here once you've created, but for now we don't do it. So you click on close, and then you have a couple of options here as well: ingest, orchestrate, transform data, and you can also configure SSIS. We will see what are these in coming sections. But and then if I click on this, you have four options here. You have home, you have author, monitor, manage. So if I click on author, you have a couple of options. Okay, we will see them. And within monitor, you have few options, and within manage, you have few options on the data factory. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to show you as a part of part one, and see you in part two. But if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, which gives us a lot of energy to create this level of content, which could be really helpful for you know helpful for the ones who is really looking into data engineering field. So data factory is an important service or an important tool to master. And thank you so much, and see you in the next video. Have a good day. Keep learning, keep sharing.